Welcome, everybody, to the paper-free playbook, where we're talking about how we turn chaos into 100% compliance. So, on the panel today, we've got Jonathan, Jamie, and Noah, and we'll get to know them with a simple question. Jonathan, if you're driving in your car by yourself today, at the loudest the volume goes, what song are you listening to?
For me, it's going to be something country, probably 90s country, to be honest. But I guess if you're putting it modern day, Zach Top's the closest thing. So we'll go that route.
All right. Jamie, what are you listening to? With just you, you're singing as loud as you can. What is it?
So definitely the volume has to be louder than me, but it's going to be Bohemian Rhapsody by
Oh,
Queen.
a classic, a classic. And Noah, over from Seattle at MTRWestern, what are you listening to as loud as it gets? Well, you're on mute, my man.
Oh man, here we go again. I have the tiger.
I have the tiger. Let's hear a little beat.
Oh God, no, you don't want to hear
All right.
that. That's a solo performance.
Understood. I did say that. So the three of y'all started in a paper world and were kind enough to entrust us to make the jump. And so, now that you know who they are and what music they listen to. So Jamie is hanging out at OK Tours as the HR manager. Jonathan, big dog over at JR Transportation, and Noah thinking about safety and compliance at MTR Western. So what's cool is we've got different perspectives here on people that use the platform and are going to share what the experience was, some things they wish they did a little differently, with hindsight being 2020. So hopefully y'all can learn from that, um, and hopefully make y'all's transition even more successful than theirs was. So while we're here, as we were talking with our customers, not only the group of three here, but others, we see people at like that leap of faith stage where you're like, okay, I want to do it, but that's a really big filing cabinet. That's a lot of spreadsheets. How am I going to do this? And then on the other side, you kind of have that sigh of relief of, okay, that was a lot, but I'm glad I did it. I don't want to do it again, but I'm glad I'm over here now. And then talking with you all about, lessons learned along the way. So problems that y'all were kind enough to share with us was the shadow of an audit, right? In paper land, you're like, I'm pretty sure I got it all, most likely, hopefully. I don't want to find out, as I'm rummaging through that paper file. Uh, I loved who said the text and prayer method, right? You're on your phone, Jonathan. I know that was kind of one of the things you're talking about. You send the text, and boy, you hope you got it. But you're not getting that notification. If they didn't, your text message is a mile long. So, did you lose it? Right. So the text and prayer, I thought that was pretty well described. You got files in different spots, and then the black hole about, boy, we live in a regulated industry, and we got to get a lot of paperwork, and it just doesn't make sense of how painful and long it was. And I've seen people at orientation where they kind of walk past like this because they know that it's such a painful process, and they know they shouldn't be welcoming drivers that way. But what are we going to do? Well, we got better ideas. Okay, let's break them down. So I'll just go down the line. We'll bounce around here. So Noah, there was a moment where you realized like the old way went from this is annoying, I don't like paper to okay, this is officially a problem. What was that wake up call for you? When did you guys like how did you guys wake up one day and go, enough, we're not doing this anymore?
I would say just the more applications that came through the door, it just became harder and harder to track just compliance and keep up with it. Um, and that just caused a lot of stress, I would say. So I think that was a big wake up call that we needed better systems in play.
So Noah, you alluded to two things in our conversation, the spreadsheet sprint and the audit reality check. So do you mind expanding on the spreadsheet sprint and what you meant?
Yeah, just creating inefficiencies, right? Like spreadsheets to track compliance. It just became lot of work and inefficient to just cover the basics from an applicant coming through the door and checking off all the boxes. Once we switched over to Avatar, an applicant can't really move beyond until all those boxes are checked. So it really eased the mind having all that in play in a one-stop shop.
Well, super excellent. That leads into the audit reality check, right? So that you have stuff when you need to go grab it for an audit. Do you mind expanding on that?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, the auditor appreciated having their own access to Avatar and to the files that they specifically requested, and they could pop in and out of there throughout the day at their leisure. Also, it created a trust, I would say, between us and the auditor. Um, and something that else that did come up was that the auditor was looking for the original documents of hire for that employee. So he selected a certain number of employees, and he wanted the original motor vehicle report, med cards, like all the original documents. So once we transitioned to Avatar, we submitted all the most recent documents. But because there was, trust there with the auditor, he gave us plenty of time to update that as he, was poking around in there. So that was great.
Awesome, man. Appreciate you, Noah. So, Jamie, you talked about the need for speed and that kind of that 30-day lag that you and the problem that caused. Do you mind expanding on that? Whether put it on your HR brain, what was slowing down recruiting?
Absolutely. So, from an HR perspective, we were losing out on quality candidates. So, one, we were using things like Indeed or referral based applicants, and those drivers would have to come in physically and fill out a paper document, and then we'd have to screen them. And so, we ran into the issue where by the time that we had a candidate that actually truly met the minimum qualifications, looked good on paper, we had everything, they would either lose interest or they have already found and selected other opportunities because we were so behind. The paper process, one, for getting the applicant to come in, fill it out, complete it, and then say, okay, we'll get back to you after we run all these other things that we needed to. By the time we got them in for their drug and alcohol, by the time we got results, we were going like almost a month out before a candidate would even be selected to move forward with a contingent offer. And so our need for speed, my wake up call was, hey, we are missing out on quality candidates because they have the opportunity to go out and find work quicker than it is with us. And that was our issue, was that by the time we were ready to select them, give them an offer, they were no longer looking, they were no longer interested. A lot of times when people are applying, it's because they need the money, they want the job now. And so that's the issue that we were running into. So definitely from an HR perspective, it was slowing down significantly. We did not control, one, we didn't have a careers landing page on our website before Avatar. Now we do, so that's great. And then we didn't have an electronic application. So definitely that need for speed was my wake up call.
Well, I'm with it, Jamie. I'm a recovering recruiter, as you remember, and I was always about how do we get those drivers off the job market as fast as possible? Because if they're applying to work for you, they're applying to work for other people. And if it's clunky, it kind of they're also having a decision to be like, well, if it's clunky to apply, what else is clunky over there? So it's your first impression. Jamie, you also on being audit ready, you went through an audit, you had a whole bunch of paper. But you even convinced the mother-in-law to change her ways, which, boy, if you can figure that out, Jamie, you can sell snow to Eskimos. So how did you?
Uh, Yes, so a little bit about OK Tours. We are a charter bus company in San Antonio, Texas. So we are family owned and operated. We have 26 vehicles in our fleet. So we were established in 1993, and our owners are the in-laws, and they are still involved in the day-to-day logistics. And prior to Avatar, everything was paper. Yeah, we still had computers, but when they first trained me for the job, I was trained on a typewriter, and I was like, what the heck? I know a computer, but what is this typewriter? So, they're very old school. So they have filing cabinets, we have files, we have paper. They love to print paper. And so that was our biggest thing, was during audits, we have really good record keeping because historically that's what they've been doing and it's been working for them. So we always get excellent audit, comments and feedback and reviews, and get a satisfactory rating. But I'm always like, oh my gosh, it's because of all the pre work we have to do. We have to sort through all the papers that the auditor needs. And then we have to either, present it to them physically, or during COVID times and a little bit after COVID, you would scan them to them. And so, one, our owners wanted to keep a historical document of a driver. Their DQ file was inception to date. So not only were they keeping everything that's current, but they historically kept every single record from the very beginning. So you can imagine that a DQ file, how thick it already is for compliance purposes, they're keeping everything historically from the very beginning. And so to the auditor, he's like, I don't need all this. Like, I just am looking for their most recent. Send me this. And so it's like, okay. So it was a lot of shifting through the papers to give them what they need. Even though we were very clean and tidy, I couldn't just, hand over, here's my DQ file, because historically speaking, it had everything in there that didn't pertain to the auditor anymore. And so definitely it was something that the owners were always against. They're like, why change it if it's working? It's always worked for us. We don't get bad reviews. It's good. Don't change it. But then, I think COVID, with that digital shift that happened there, auditors not physically coming in person, not looking at your stuff, and then you needing to give information out sooner, there was that need for the digital world. So that definitely influenced the change as well.
Yes, there's so much historical paper out there. I once scanned for a customer someone that started applying on my actual birthday, my date of literal birth. And it's like, and there was everything between then and that date. We don't need all that, right? Don't give the auditor more than they need, which was a question someone asked in the chat. Are you able to limit what an auditor can see? And that is that with the different versions. Jonathan, one thing you share with us is one of my favorite topics, the fake digital, right? You're in a Google Drive or a Teams Drive, and you're like, I'm digital, but all the paper that has to get scanned to get there. You mind sharing your realization, your wake up call of like, this is fake digital. This isn't really what I need to be.
Yeah, I had quite the hybrid system of Google Drive, spreadsheets, and then paper. I was able to get some paper onto the Google Drive, and then using spreadsheets for trying to track all my expiration dates and everything. So along the way, we had tried a few other systems out there that just I found more confusing than the system I already had going on. So we fell back to that, and then that was a fantastic thing when we found you guys, was that it was able to just scan or move what I'd already had scanned on there. That was easy. Scan the rest of what I still needed to scan onto there and get everything in one spot, and eliminate all my spreadsheets that were involved for expiration dates for medical cards, you name it. So yeah, it was fantastic. I've got about probably 15 or 20 empty file cabinets out in the garage now that I can't even find anyone to take for free. and I freed up a lot of space. So yeah.
Did I assume, Jonathan, our guy Horace sent you the link on how to turn a file cabinet into smoker? So that's his big thing.
I mean, you have to send me that one. Maybe I can finally get rid of them.
Yeah, you could do like ribs on the bottom, chicken on the top. It's a good combination.
It's a great idea.
And then I think, Jonathan, you also tried though non-DOT specific systems and just square peg round hole. Do you mind expanding on that?
Yeah, so the one in particular that we tried was the Encompass, and I just honestly I found them so much more confusing, and it only did partial of what you did. It was just for the files only, where with you guys that part's way much more simpler than they were. But then also like the driver hiring process, it just streamlines all of that. Referring back to what Noah said, like it's awesome that they can't even go to the next step until that point's completed, so there's no going back and backtracking and trying to fill in the gaps later. So
Well, appreciate you giving it a second shot and going through it, a non-big time software, right? Something that works. And I'll share this. When we hear people say, like, I'm going to make the transition, Why we feel so confident is because in the beginning, we went out and learned the hard way by scanning, and we thought in the beginning, well, our customers can do that. Y'all can figure it out, right? But what we heard and learned was y'all got jobs to do. And so, right, there really isn't an easy button on this thing. I don't know why DQ files, but as many, they have to have at least 100 staples in them. And just getting the staples out to put them in the scanner is half the battle. Uh, and you can't automate that, right? We love AI and are putting features in all the time, but we have not. Maybe Elon's robots can destaple it for us. That'll be a nice thing. But the reality is, it's a bit difficult. So yes, it is a scanathon, and so I know we've been down, Jamie, to your shop, and we've ripped the staples. I think you're still finding staples on the floor, that you're stepping on from that. And so we are, uploading it with AI, but human in the loop because some of these things what we say is the AI is really good at reading and categorizing, but it's not 100%. But when we look at it, it's because a human can't read it, right? And if you all have rolled around those old paper files, the one that was in there, that original application from 1987 that got eaten by a moth, like, AI can't solve that problem. So, and that's where it comes times, there's a time and a place for a note to the audit that says, yeah, sorry, this collected dust and a moth ate this thing. I don't have the original, I'm sorry. And they seem to be with it. So I wanted to open up questions again. So going through the line here, Jonathan, we'll start with you and work up the migration, right? They can be scary. So if you don't mind, just kind of talking through the three questions here of like, hey, what went well on the migration? Looking back on it for the people here, what would you have done differently? A lesson learned, and maybe what was the most surprising part of moving the data over?
Okay. What went well? I really, for us, what went well was it became a teamwork effort. I had a lot of people in our office. It became their new job to help scan stuff and download it, download it into the system. So what I would have done differently, which was actually you guys offer this, was I could have sent you all the stuff and scanned it in and had you guys do a lot of that legwork for me. But for me, I prefer to do a lot of it myself because I was really learning. It was a great opportunity for me to really learn the system and how it works. And then also, we filled out a lot of check in the blocks along the way where uh, we would certain items might have been missing along the way from the paper system. So that was our opportunity to go back and fill in those gaps so that our system with you guys was set up and 100% correct. The most surprising or challenging part of the move, it was honestly, it takes longer. You got to give yourself more time than you think it's going to take you. It's not going to happen in a week. It's going to take a little bit longer as far as the transition, getting all your paperwork into the system. And that was probably also the most challenging part too. It just takes time and consistency to stick to the process and get it all in there.
Jonathan, you might expand. You mentioned Sue letting go of the manual reins that you were surprised about how long it took you to break the habit of the manual text and letting the automation take over.
Yeah, I was. I would actually would have drivers call me out on it because I would send them a text about because I basically live. My favorite part about the system is the compliance screen and letting drivers know ahead of time. But the system already does that for you. And so, I'd shoot them a message about their medical card, either text message or email about their medical card expiring. Let's get that scheduled. And they'd give me a friendly reminder that, yeah, I already got that. I already got that notification from the system. So now after, it took me a few months to trust the system and let it do what we pay you for it to do.
All right. Jamie, what do you think? What went well? What would you have done differently? And what was the biggest surprise for you?
So for us, we did it a little different. We trusted you guys to handle that process for us. So what went well was actually making the decision to have your team come to our office and scan all of our DQ files to put into Avatar. I will say that also had to obviously be approved through our owners because they didn't want other people to touch those DQ files because of how pristine and detailed, and how great that they are. And so they're like, man, having someone come in, they're going to mess it up. They're not going to put it back the way it was. It's going to be all out of order. No. But I think having your team come in, it was two people, Evan and Kyle. They came in and took one day to transcribe all of our DQ files, which is small. We're a small organization. So I believe it was 27 DQ files that they did, like you mentioned, have to take off paper clips and scan. But it was honestly the best decision because we did contemplate back and forth. Oh, we can handle it. We don't have that many. We could scan it. We have good scanners. But it really did help because you're absolutely right. We wear multiple hats in our business. So I'm not just HR, I'm doing other things as well. And our compliance officer who helps with Avatar, he's doing other things as well. So it really helped to have your team here doing that for us. And like I said, they were in and out in a day. Our DQ files were back the way we presented it to them. And they were even astonished by how neat and organized everything was. The only hiccup there was their scanner had went out and they had to go out and buy a new one. But I mean, even with that happening in their day, they still finished. And so it couldn't have been smoother. So I think that was one of the best choices we made during those first 30 days. And then I would say the most surprising challenge that we didn't see ahead of time, we didn't forecast for, was that you're absolutely right. Handwriting or the way the wording of some things, the AI didn't trigger that as compliant. So what we thought was compliant in Avatar, it was marking like we had, I don't know, 64 records that weren't compliant. And we had to go in and either approve them and acknowledge or put some backup that said, hey, these are in fact valid, accept it. But once we were able to tell the system that, it accepted it as a compliant record. So that I think that was one of our challenges that we noticed. And we're still trying to get better at that, right? So you have this historical document, and then it's just trying to make the new system work with that historical document. So that was just a challenge that we saw only when transitioning our existing drivers. Now, when we have new drivers that come in through Avatar, of course, AI is reading it perfectly because the wording is there the way they want to see it. But yeah, that was a challenge in the beginning, was how do we make these historic records now compliant?
All right, Noah, you're up, my man. What do you think? What went well in the transition? Y'all decided to get the rubber gloves on and do it yourself. What do you say? What went well? What would you have done differently? And what
I
about the
say,
challenge?
yeah, what went well, I think what was great was that we were ready to go. Had already scanned all of our documents. So we were eager to get going, get started. Um, that went really well, I thought. What would we have done differently? I think letting go of like old ways. I think we definitely would have let go sooner. I think it just involves a lot of trust and a lot of letting go, and it doesn't really go well with compliance, right? You always got to double check and triple check, make sure stuff is working. What was the most surprising challenge? I would say creating a custom workflow that works for us, and also creating qualifying questions for the drivers that were walking through the door. So just customizing that specific for each position that we were hiring for. That way we would filter out anybody that wasn't qualified. I think that was the most time consuming, I would say, but most rewarding too, because it saved a lot of time in the qualification process. But overall, all worth it, and yeah, it was worth it.
So, Jonathan, I want to come back to you real quick because you talked a little bit about change. As we're talking about changing process, you took a look at 40 pages and you kind of said, "Hey, the way we always used to do things isn't the way we need to do things now." So you took a time to take some, chopping out or reorganizing how you configured as Noah did. Do you mind expanding on that a little bit?
Yeah. Our paper process, we probably had, not probably, no probably about it, but we had overkill on what we were having them fill out as far as, I mean, just the application alone our paper application was probably 8 pages long. Uh, we had too much going on, and it was I like to say when someone was applying here, it was the paperwork was like buying a house. Everything,
Yeah,
all the
yeah.
paperwork you had to fill out, sign. We probably had to find out all this information about all the same information about their background. So it was great learning through the process of what's actually required because we were able to cut a lot of that fat out of it and get it down to the basics, but also the specifics of stuff that we still needed and wanted to have in there.
So, watching with the time we have left, I wanted to ask one more question of the group. And so we had a customer on this call that we loved that decided to spike the football and celebrate by when they passed an audit. They threw a party outside. Things that used to like audit day used to be paint or it used to be audit week. Now it's audit day, and they're throwing parties. So that behavior we absolutely encourage. So for Noah, Jamie, and Jonathan, as you think through things that you use all the time, whether it's AI to read the license, punch the data, the reminders, a mobile first application, the digital audit. What's y'all's favorite on that list? And now that you've crossed the bridge, how's your day-to-day life already changed? So I'm sorry to put the shot clock on you because we got 2 minutes. So Noah, could you give us a 30 second, what's your favorite piece of the
Uh,
software?
yeah, I already know. It's like every day I just log in and I see, 100% or 99% compliance. That just gives me a lot of comfort. And that also focuses on what driver I need to focus on to bring them up to compliance. Um, that's my favorite piece of all of it.
Jamie, how about you?
I would say, from an HR perspective, my favorite piece is the ability to send them a quick link, whether that's text message or email, however they prefer to be notified, to say, hey, pick up where you left off. You didn't finish your application, pick up here. And they could just click into that link and continue their application from there.
Cool. Jonathan, what do you have?
I like both the things they said, but I'm going to go with the 60-day autopilot, where they get all the reminders so they can be ahead of the game on getting their things renewed before it gets to expiration day.
I dig it. And we'll do one last rapid fire for the people sitting in paperland, kind of right on that line, scared to make the jump. Noah, what's one piece of advice? Why should they do it?
Because it's scary and it's right. Jump. Just do it.
Jamie, what do you have?
Yeah, like Noah said, just do it. It doesn't take as long as you think. So I definitely thought it was going to take longer. It's going to be a daunting process. It's not. It's not that hard.
Love it. Jonathan, what's your parting shot?
Definitely, it was much easier than I thought it would be, and you'll never have to dig through filing cabinets ever again. At least on the driver files aspect of things.
That's right. You might be digging in there for a rack of ribs instead.
That's right. That's right.
So you've heard Jonathan was fake digital. Noah ripped out and they did it themselves and got digital. Jamie said, "Bring us on down." Wherever you are, an old system, fake digital, paper, um, we offer that. We have learned that it's just we need to make that transition easy. So anyone that signs up with us for a 3-year deal, we now do that as a part of the package. So if that's something you want, y'all can hit that QR code and we'll follow up with the email. And just to see here is before we say adios, are there any questions we have? One of them was integrating with any other HR systems like payroll. The answer is yes, right? So the payroll providers, the idea is you hit a button, push the data into that system so that the candidate doesn't have to repeat themselves, as well as when terminated, that can update it. And that's the idea there. For keeping systems synced. That list looks to expand into telematics, right? We've got vehicle rosters right now with Samsara, where driver rosters are coming up next, and we'll continue that down the path of telematics and the different dispatch tools. That was the theme of our users conference at UMA this last week was how do we connect more and more systems so that Jamie, Noah, and Jonathan don't have to type candidate profiles into multiple spots. And Allison, we got you with Paylocity. There's of course multiple versions of Paylocity, so let's make sure it's the right one, but we can push some feeds back and forth. Um, So with that, I appreciate everyone's time. We promised 30 minutes. We'll get you back to y'all's busy days so you can go back to world domination as you do. Noah, Jamie, Jonathan, thank you for the time today. We appreciate it.